stories of our lives, words on a page, create a special feeling that become memories. Favorite melodies sung in harmony, lyrics that will tell your story. Come and join the adventures that we now share.
Hi, this is Jessie Peyton for Songs of Our Lives, and I'm here with Brenda McCurdy. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Jessie.
Hi, thanks for sitting with me.
No problem.
I'm here to chat about your love of music and your roots and where you'd like to ultimately go next with this. Why don't you tell us about where your musical love began?
Well, I would say it began back in Richmond, Virginia, where I was born, and was raised by my two parents, and then I had two sisters as well. So around about the age of 2, I remember singing with my family, and we had a group called the Wright Family Singers, and we would sing every Sunday at a church somewhere in Richmond. And once or twice a year, my dad would take us on what he called a vacation, but it was a singing vacation. We'd travel along the east coast of the eastern seaboard, and we'd go to various churches along that seaboard, and my dad would find families for us to stay with. So we didn't have money for hotels, so we had people that took us in, and then we'd be going for a week, and we'd come back and tell all of our friends that we'd been on a singing tour, and that was our vacation. So it was fun.
Wow, what an incredible experience for a child. So you started your singing tours, so to speak, when you were very young.
Yes.
For you and your sisters, that must have been just extraordinary.
It was.
Yes.
Great memories.
And so when you were young, who did you idolize? Who did you model yourself after?
Well, there were some great singers that I listened to a lot. Because a lot of my background was in the church. I remember listening to Mahalia Jackson. She had an awesome voice, so I really loved her music. And then outside of that, I would listen to one guy named Julius LaRosa. He sang every week on the Arthur Guthrie show. And as a child, I guess folks thought that was a little weird because I was young. But I loved listening to Julius LaRosa. He sang a lot of these old tunes, which as I grew older, I learned to like those songs. And you'll see later on when we talk about my CD that a lot of those old songs came back from that time era.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So as you moved more into academia, you were taken away from music for a little while. Can you talk about your education after high school?
Sure. After high school, I stayed at home because my parents couldn't afford tuition away. Well, not tuition, but room and board. So I went to school in Richmond, which was like about 10 miles from where we lived out in the county. And I became a biology major. And my love for biology stemmed back to when I was a young girl. And I found some old horse bones in the backyard buried into the soil, but a part of the horse bone was sticking out of the soil. And I got, I think I might want to uncover this, maybe put the skeleton together. And my mom says, no, don't do that because you might get something really bad, like a bad disease. So I backed off of that. But that didn't take away my love for wanting to pursue something in the science field. So I went to university, as I said before, and I ended up majoring in biology. And when I finished undergrad, I went to graduate school, also in Richmond, where I studied microbiology. Got my master's, and then the same year I finished that, I had applied for a school in Detroit area. So I came to Detroit, ended up at Wayne State University, studied and got my doctorate in immunology and microbiology. Then I went to work for the Veterans Administration Hospital in Allen Park, Michigan. Stayed there for a number of years, and then I went to work for the Food and Drug Administration, which had an office in Detroit. And my job there was to supervise a group of microbiologists and chemists in the food and drug work.
Wow, that's incredible. So you were in Detroit during the inception years of Motown.
Yes.
And you got to see the evolution of jazz and R&B. And how do you think that impacted your, I guess, early professional years when you were focused more on your career and not necessarily so much on music?
Well, part of my career when I was in school, I was studying at the time, and as you said, it was the Motown era. Well, my two sisters and we pretended to be the Supremes. So we sang a lot of their songs at school functions, and so we had that tie-in there. And then, of course, I sang a lot of the old Motown songs by the Four Tops, Marvin Gaye, and so yeah, that was a big influence on what my final type of music was going to be. Yeah.
So you eventually ended up at the Windsor Light Opera. Can you speak about how you made that jump?
Sure. I was living in Windsor by that time because I got married and moved to Windsor, Ontario. And one night I was downtown having dinner with a friend of mine at a place called the Pit for Pasta. And the owner came over and said, I hear you have vocal chops, like you work or you perform with the Windsor Light Music Theater. And I said, well, yeah. Some years ago, they were looking for a black cast because they were going to put on ragtime, and I auditioned and came up with a spot in the chorus for ragtime. And I said, sure, if you want me to sing, I'd love to come and sing at your restaurant. So that's how I really got started doing this nightclub restaurant type thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. So having that live audience, being able to respond just to you, that must have been a real thrill.
It was. It was something I hadn't done before, not in that setting. When I was doing the church thing many years ago with my family, it was a church audience, which is quite different than an audience you'd see in a restaurant or in a nightclub.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was different, and but I could pull back on that experience that I had early on and applied it to my new venue.
And from there, you developed an album, I hear.
Yes.
Can you share that with us?
I can.
Okay.
One of my projects that I did was what we called a project. There was a program here in Windsor that was performed at the Old Cleary Auditorium. It was called Celebrations, and I called it a performance for older people. So I went into that because my girlfriend says, why don't you go in and audition for the Celebrations, because she says the music that you sing has that old flavor and people would love that. So I did. I went in the first year and I sang. Then I went back the second year and performed again. Turns out the fella named Jay Douglas, who ended up being my producer, had been there both years. And so the second year that I was there, he asked me would I come to Toronto and make a CD in his studio.
Oh.
So I go, really? You think I can sing well enough to do that? He said, oh, sure, you're better than you think you are. I said, well, if you say so. So that's how that happened. I stayed in Windsor the whole time, and then I would travel back and forth to Toronto to work on the CD. Mind you, I was also working full-time at the time. So I was trying to balance the trips back and forth to Toronto and then working my job full-time while I made the CD. So it was finally done in 2012. We launched in 2013. And the CD was called Follow My Heart, which is named after one of the songs on the album, which is If I Follow My Heart, a song by Dennis Brown, who's a reggae artist from Jamaica.
Oh, reggae as well?
Yes.
Wow. So jazz Motown, reggae, gospel.
Hmm.
Am I missing any?
No, it's all on
No.
my CD as well. I did all those genre on my CD.
Beautiful. Wow. So can you tell me of all the music? Do you have a favorite song?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes. I really like the song called What a Wonderful World.
Oh.
And I liked it so much that every time I finish one of my my productions or my singing, I'll always close out with that song.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, in today's world where there's so much unrest and there's so much turmoil, that there's still beauty all around us. We just have to look for it. So if we tune our hearts and our thoughts in that direction, it'll make a lot more sense to us, and we will be able to achieve and enjoy that music.
Wow. What a beautiful sentiment. Is there any chance we could hear that song?
I think so. I can do that for you.
That's wonderful. Well, let's go hear that song.
Okay.
Okay.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies are blue, clouds of white, bright blessed day, dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll never know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, singing, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll never know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Brenda, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It was one of my favorite songs as well, and to hear it from such an accomplished musician such as yourself, it's just absolutely moving. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Again, this is Jessie Peyton with Songs of Our Lives, sitting here with Brenda McCurdy, and you've been absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.